first part of the series, The Weight We Carry, we talked about the reality that many women have. They had a picture in their mind about how their life was going to be, like how it was going to turn out, what love was going to look like, what family was going to look like, motherhood, support, how it was supposed to look, and what happens when life takes a different turn. And I want to let you know, moms, that you aren't the only ones that do that. I think we all do that, but I also think that women do it more than males. That's just my sexist opinion. Okay, so let's move forward. And since we're going to talk about, or we did talk about how things didn't go the way we planned, as I mentioned last episode, we still have a life to live. And when I say a life to live, I mean you still have to be a mom. You have decisions to make. You still have to show up. You got to keep things together, even when you're trying to put yourself back together. And I want people to understand that. It's just like a puzzle. Like, it's not a complete picture until it's a complete picture. So, okay, queens, let's take a deep breath. One in, one out. Let's woosah. And let's dive right into the part of this important topic. So what we're going to talk about today is carrying the weight that people don't see. We are in the series, The Weight We Carry. And now what we're going to talk about is carrying a weight that people don't see. Obviously, I'm not talking about physical weight, but we could get into that too. But anyhow, I'm really talking about like not just the groceries, laundry, bills. Think about all we do. School runs, work schedule, balance the checkbook, keeping up with homework, cooking, cleaning, keeping appointments, going to doctor appointments, doing stuff for other people, especially if you're a daughter. You may have an aging parent. And we do so much more. I'm talking about that quiet weight. The weight that's in your mind. Think about it. The weight that's in your spirit. The weight that's in your heart. And sometimes that weight makes your heart heavy. The weight you carry. And here's what's really cool. And I was thinking about this when I was working on this for you. We carry that weight while we're still smiling, acting like everything's okay. We still working. We got jobs. We're still a parent. We're still praying. And more importantly, queens, we're still trying to be okay. So let me say this early on in the episode. Just because people do not see the weight does not mean it's not there, and it doesn't mean it's not heavy. Just because you carry the weight doesn't mean it's light. Actually, to be quite honest, I think it's quite the opposite of light. And just because you keep going and going and going doesn't mean you don't need support. So as I carry on with this podcast topic, and I talked to you guys before, it's the instructor in me. You got the professor in me, the trainer in me. I have to break things down. So I'm hoping that some people take notes, they listen to it again. But if you don't, you don't. So we're going to break this down into a few segments. I think it's 6 or 7. I'm not sure. I don't even remember. But the first thing I want to talk about, queens, is the weight behind the smile. So let's talk about that. Lots of single moms have learned how to function. And I have to also say this. I think it's women in general, but especially single moms. We learn how to function while we're overwhelmed. And as we discussed previously, we have to get up. That's the first part. Make sure everybody else gets up, gets ready, gets dressed, take care of the kids, get them off to school, go to our own jobs. Then we have to answer and do what we got to do at work. We have our own personal stuff to do, emails. We got calls to make. You'd be surprised what we all know this as moms, that we can get done on break, lunch, whatever. Bills we got to pay. You got to figure out dinner. You got to check homework. And guess what? We still smiling. And when somebody asks you, how are you? It's so typical. We always say this, I'm fine, or I'm good, or I'm making it, or one day at a time, or I'm hanging in there. Just a little tip. You know what I started doing? I started just for fun. And it's so funny. I started saying to people, When they say, how you doing? I say terrible. Nobody knows what to say. That's funny, but we'll talk about that later. Because normally, I guess it's just embedded in us. The response is always positive. We just say, like I said before, we always say something positive. So in the back of our minds, we could be worrying about money. We could be tired of making all the decisions, like every single solitary decision that has to do with our life and our child's life alone. You could be grieving over something, and most of the time we don't even have time to adequately grieve. You have to still be emotionally present for your child. Let that sink in, okay? Let it sink in for a second. And a lot of times you're emotionally drained yourself. And I can attest to that personally as an ex-single mom. So that's the weight that people don't see. Because sometimes people see your strength. And I know that's always been the case for me. People see my strength and they mistaken it for everything's all right. And they take it that everything is easy. They see you moving and they assume you're not tired. They see you smiling, and I'm a great one for that. Not knowing that deep down inside, you're hurting. They see you handling things, and I think a lot of people assume you don't need help. And I hate to say it, it's because for real, most folks don't want to bother to offer you the help. It's just the way it really is. But queens, think about it like this. Being functional and being fine or okay is not the same thing. You can be productive and still be overwhelmed. You can be responsible and do what you need to do while still being exhausted. Remember this, you love your children and you can love your children deeply. And so many moms act like they don't need a break. Yes, you do. You can be blessed and everything in your life feels blessed and you can still feel burdened. The two can go hand in hand. But one of my favorite things to say is both things can be true at the same time. Because I feel like people don't understand that. All right, so let that sink in. And we're going to go straight into the next topic. The mental load that single moms carry. The weight of that is astronomical. We have to remember everything. And thank goodness for tech and tech tools. Because I didn't have as many tools as you guys did. We have to keep up with doctor appointments. Who needs new shoes? Who needs new clothes? Who needs whatever you can think of? What bills are due and when? You got school forms and permission slips to sign. If you have your children in sports, you got to make time for practice. You got to make sure you know what's in the refrigerator, what groceries you got to buy. There's laundry. And on top of that, it's like, okay, where's the encouragement? People don't seem to notice if you've been acting different lately. You keep track of what needs to be done today, tomorrow, next week, next month. So, the mental load is not always loud. You don't always share it. But one thing I know for sure, it's consistent. It's there. It's like on your computer having 20 tabs open at the same time. So think about having those tabs open in your mind. All right? And sometimes, even just like with your computer, I have to close some of the tabs. So just remember, sometimes even when you're sitting down and looks like you're resting, your mind is still going. And you know why your mind's still going, moms? You know. Because you're thinking about your children, money, house, job, car, your future, the past, the present, the next thing, the things you forgot. And there is always things you forgot. So I hear people say, well, why are you so tired? Like you're young. Come on, queens. Even thinking about all the stuff you got to do can be tiring. And that's what you need to just start telling people. I find that even planning can be tiring because now I got to make this digital list and that's exhausting. So I want you to remember that you think you can't afford to be tired, but yes, you can. And just also, as I soften my voice some, because I'm a little loud and excitable, the weight you carry that people do not see. They don't see it. Now, that brings me to my next point. Number 3, the emotional load. So let's just talk about that for just a moment. The weight of managing your feelings. And here's what happens, queens, when you're a single mom. You just don't manage your feelings. You have to manage your children's feelings. And sometimes it seems like you have to manage everybody else's feelings too. Think about it. If your child has a hard day and they're stressed out and overwhelmed, you can't show that you're stressed out and overwhelmed. You have to be steady. Let's pretend your child asks you a question, maybe about their dad or something you don't want to talk about. You have to almost simultaneously, instantly find the right words to say. And what about if your child is disappointed? You have to manage that. You may be disappointed too, but that don't matter. You have to comfort your children. And think about it. Children are just little people. They get angry, but you have to respond with wisdom and discernment. Think about that. Instead of reacting from being exhausted. At least the good moms do. And sometimes, queens, you have to carry your child's emotions, your child's burden, your own emotions, the emotions of people that you're connected to. And sometimes people in your life don't even show up properly. So this is the kind of stuff that people don't talk about. But I know it's necessary. And this is why I'm talking about it. And I want you to know I got you. Okay? This is some heavy stuff. And many single moms, I think as they're parenting, they just don't take the time to think about that. So this is one of the reasons why I chose to elaborate on this topic and let you know that I see you. I know that you absorb so much disappointment. You absorb attitudes and your attitude. You have to absorb absence, whatever that may mean to you, the absence of the other father or the co-parent doing what they're supposed to be doing. You have to absorb questions and come up with the right answers. Basically, you have to absorb all the pressure and all the pain and not put that on your child. And I don't care what nobody says, it's a lot. And I need to say this out of love. Please remember this, queens, and I'm going to take a deep breath. You have feelings too, so you need to find ways and time to express them when you need to. And you're allowed to be disappointed and find a way to share that. You are allowed to be frustrated. You're allowed to admit that some days are just hard, all right? You're allowed to find a special, safe place, and you're allowed, please always be truthful with yourself. And being a mother doesn't take away your humanity or your needs. So queens, I want you to remember that. All right, my queens. The 4th thing I'm going to talk about in this episode is the weight of being the default parent. Woo, queens. Being a default parent. That, you know what that means? You know what it really means? It means that everybody calls you first. School, the doctor, of course your child, other family members. You're the emergency contact. Okay? The responsibility is on you. And here's why everybody calls you first. This is funny. I thought about this so hard, and it's because you know everything. And that's so cool. And not cool at the same time. You know the children's sizes. Like if your parents or the other parent wants to buy something, you know the size. You know the allergies. You know the teacher's name. You know the different kind of moods your child has. Like if your child got a certain look, you know exactly what that means. Like I have a son that does a certain thing, and nobody knows what that look means but him and me. You know when something's off. You know when something needs to be done. And here's the kicker with us queens as single moms. You even know stuff before anybody asks you. It's just there, okay? And even when people need help, they always know who to run to. So I just ran the gamut of everything that I could possibly think of. And think about this, Queens. Let's be honest. Sometimes it feels like you don't get any help. But people may say just ask for help. But for some reason, we seem to be reluctant to do that. I don't know why, because I'm still trying to figure that out, because for the most part, I did ask for help. I did. And I didn't care if anybody judged me or whatever, because my bottom line was just, I need help. We can discuss why I need help later. And if you got to go into all that, then just don't bother to ask me for no help. All right, moms? So I want you to know that sometimes you might feel like you don't want to ask nobody for help because they're just going to not understand or be nosy or something like that. But listen, Queens, I see you. Ask for help, okay? Just do it. And you'll learn who's there for you and who's not. So I also want you to understand that asking for help doesn't mean you're weak. To be honest, it means the exact opposite. It means you're strong. It doesn't mean that you're not reliable. I don't want you to think, or if somebody helps you too much, just tell them. If you don't want to do it, it doesn't, just don't do it. Needing support and being respected is something that's so critical to the work that you have to do. And listen, Queens, you're not weak. Always remember that. You're human. It makes you her. It actually makes you you. And you know for a fact, my queens, and I'm talking to you. Yeah, you. You are a badass. Let's face it. Face it. Because that's what I always said about myself. Okay? Yes, I am her. All right. So the fifth part is the spiritual weight. Now, that may mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but I want you to understand that the weight of stuff, it sometimes just grinds on your spirit. I feel like you need to, and this is what always worked for me. I'm always just sharing what works for me and telling you what I know. All right? I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just giving you what we used to call food for thought. Ask God for direction when you don't know what to do. I think sometimes we have a little bit too much responsibility and struggles, and we don't have answers. So what we could also do is just simply ask God, like, how much longer? So have faith. And faith doesn't mean you never feel overwhelmed, or I guess I meant to say overwhelmed. Faith doesn't mean you never cry. It doesn't mean you don't ask questions. It also, having faith doesn't mean that you pretend that the weight you're carrying is not heavy, because it is. It simply means, God, to the God of your understanding, I do not know how, but help me, Lord. Take the next step. Sometimes faith isn't a big speech, it's a quiet whisper. Sometimes you need faith just to get out of bed. Sometimes you need faith just to make that phone call to ask somebody for help. Sometimes faith is just taking a deep breath before you answer somebody that has pissed you off. Okay? Sometimes faith is resting, cat naps, because you finally understand you're not by yourself. You were never meant to carry everything by yourself. And that is really why the burden feels so heavy. So we weren't designed to handle parenting alone. Point blank. Remember I told you I might say some stuff wrong. Point blank, period. You weren't designed to handle this alone. Okay, so understand that, queens. Sometimes it's strong. You need strength to admit that you're weak. Hope that makes sense, but we'll talk about that in another episode. All right, we're almost at the finish line. Here's what I want you to think about, and I guess that's point number 6. The weight of looking okay. All right, I was trying to think of another name for that, but I couldn't. So I guess we'll just call it pressure. I think sometimes we don't want people to think or make assumptions about our life. We don't want people to pity us. We don't want our kids to worry. Sometimes we carry a lot of weight because we don't want family members or your community to gossip about you. And you simply just don't want to look like you can't handle it all. So you just keep it moving. You dress it up. You put a smile on your face. Somebody asks you how you doing. You say, I'm fine. And you keep the pain private. But there's also wisdom in not telling everybody everything. So I want to be clear about that. Everybody doesn't need to know or deserve to know you're vulnerable. Because for real, and I'm being really real with you guys, they can't help anyway. So you're not being mean, you're just being truthful. And this is my reality and how I think about stuff. So I'm just sharing that with you. Sometimes people don't need to know the truth. Sometimes, and sometimes not. If you're tired, you may need to share that. And I think you need to have that special person or that special support that lets you know it's okay to be overwhelmed. So I think it's safe for you to make sure you pray, ask for support and encouragement. And like I said before, sometimes it's as simple as just a deep breath, because carrying everything in silence can make you feel like it's not really happening. But remember this, and we'll talk about it some more. Having a support system and a village is important. You're not invisible, your feelings aren't invisible, and you're not invincible. So just remember that. All right. Here's what I want you to also know, and this is my last point. What people don't see still matters. I want you to know that the tears you wipe away when you think no one's looking, they matter. The prayers you pray in private, they matter. The sacrifices that nobody bothered to thank you for mattered. All the nights you stay up worrying, that matters. The time you chose peace, and I've done this more than anybody I know. Sometimes I think something wrong with me. When you should have exploded, you kept it in and you kept a smile on your face and you kept the peace. Sometimes you showed up for people when you were so tired, you don't even know how you did it. You did it on fumes. Your effort matters. The work you do matters. Basically, what I'm trying to say is your feelings, queen, you matter. You must validate yourself always before anybody else does. And here's what I want you to tell yourself. This is a lot, okay? And it is, being a single mom. But I'm doing the best I can. And do this. Be proud of yourself. And also remember this. If you need support, it doesn't make you less of a mom. It actually makes you smart. Smart enough to know, like, help. I need help. So allow yourself to be honest. Be honest about the weight you're carrying. Because if you keep waiting for somebody to notice, you're going to be waiting forever. Because it seems like people don't even know or think that you may need a break. So let your voice be heard. All right, my queens, here's the time in this episode where I want you to reflect. I want you to ask yourself a couple questions, and I hope we get a chance to be live because I want some answers, or you can email me. What I am carrying that people do not see. It may not look good. People may not think you're strong. People think whatever they think, but for the most part, if they're not helping, who cares what they think? The truth is, you have to ask yourself, what am I carrying in my mind, my heart, and my spirit? What are you carrying when you feel like nobody else understands? Okay? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to write down 3 things. I want you to name all the weight you're carrying, or just some of it, maybe the extra weight. I want you to write down the one thing you need help with, the major, major thing. But most importantly, I want you to stop pretending it's easy, because it's not. But that's okay. It's not what happens to you, it's how you handle it. All right, my queens, that's it. I think I did enough fixing today, and I want you to know that just because you feel weighed down, it doesn't mean that you're weak. Naming the weight is actually the wisdom, because sometimes we carry weight that people don't see, but that doesn't mean that the weight isn't real. You may be overwhelmed, but remember, you're not failing, you're just overwhelmed. You may be tired, but that by no means means you're weak. You got to be a strong person to be an effective single mom. You might be the default parent, but you're also the comforter, the warrior, the problem solver. And remember, when you're a single mom, the weight of everything those other people, yes, I call children, those other people, depends on you. But you're still that person. You're a whole person. You're a woman with feelings, needs, hopes, dreams, and a spirit, my queens. A spirit that deserves care. So this week and the next week, until I talk to you again, I want you to stop minimizing what you're carrying. I want you to stop saying, oh, it's nothing. It's not nothing. It's something. I want you to stop saying, I'm fine, when you're not. If you need help and support, ask for it. You won't get it if you don't ask for it anyway. So stop pretending that the invisible weight isn't there just because no one sees it. You don't have to tell everybody your business like I mentioned earlier, because I have one thing to say about this wonderful new generation. Because of social media, and y'all tell everybody your business, but guess what? You tell them all the wrong business. Okay, so figure out your safe place and your safe space and use that. So as we wrap this up, I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, queens, for listening to another episode of X and the Single Mom podcast. This is number 2 in the series, The Weight We Carry. And this episode was carrying the weight that people don't see. And my queens, I have a favor to ask you. If this episode spoke to you, or if you think it can be useful in any way to another single mom, please, queens, pass it on. And remember, just because they don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So thank you so much. I have a special offer for you. The first 20 people that email me at xsmpodcast@gmail.com, put in the subject, I want it, and I want to give you a free resource. I've only given out a few, but I have hundreds to give out. Get yours. It's a free resource. It's free, no strings. Self-care hacks for the busy single mom. And to connect to me, you can reach me at xsmpodcast@gmail.com. I have a website just for you, and I'm getting hoarse. That means I talk too long. And that is www.xandthesinglemom.com. And as you know, I never say goodbye. I say so long for now. So long for now, my queens. And I can't wait to talk to you again. Take care. Take care, queens. So long.